Thank you. Please come in. Mind the mess. I went a bit nuts in buy mode. Okay, so EA, I hear you like money. Is that correct? What if I told you that there was a franchise that had sold tens of millions of copies? One that was beloved by all. One that is still considered the finest example of its genre to this very day.
Whoa.
That right now is just sitting on the bench doing absolutely nothing for your bottom line. I know, it's crazy, but luckily, me and the boys were talking, and we think we have a real shot of resurrecting such a franchise. What do you say? Oh, the game's name? I think you know this one. Cue theme music. The year is 1989. Wars are falling, Michaels are walking, and nerds are gaming. One of these nerds is none other than Wrighty, a rookie game designer who, after cultivating a love of the intricacies and theories of urban planning, whatever the hell that means, began designing the game based around the most enthralling and exciting topic out there: town planning.
Let the hacking begin.
However, publishers didn't see eye to eye with Wrighty regarding the viability of this topic.
I'm out.
I am out.
And I'm out.
Shockingly, they considered such a concept far too hard to market to consumers.
You guys like
Cities.
Let's go, dudes.
After being told to piss off by nearly every company he approached,
I have to go find my friend.
Yeah.
Wrighty finally found a worthy suitor in the form of Maxis Entertainment. In a fairy tale of a story, this small company decided to bankroll the program, despite not having any experience in the field of video games whatsoever.
I've never done anything like this before.
What could be the reason for this incredible amount of faith Maxis invested into Wrighty? Was it his vision? Was it his drive? Was it his talent? Well, it was a combination of all three of these things, as well as the fact that Wrighty had, founded the company and could invest in whatever the hell he wanted.
Here's $5, get busy.
Safe to say, with real Wrighty at the wheel, the game absolutely crushed the competition. Released in early '89, Wrighty's city simulation game, imaginatively titled SimCity, was a hit with fans and critics alike. In 3 years, the game had sold 1 million copies, and every magazine worth their salt was heaping praise on SimCity. Computer Gaming World called it dynamic. PC Format would go a step further with their praise, calling the game a town planner's dream. The game would even make its way to politics when the city of Providence, and I am not taking the piss here, had its mayoral candidates duke it out in a SimCity competition. And who said politicians didn't have any real life skills?
Played college
SimCity.
you know.
Naturally, this massive success warranted a sequel.
Prepare for trouble.
Make it double.
But Maxis couldn't just slap a 2 in the box and call it a day, because that number would tell consumers that the game was only twice as good as its predecessor. And in the world of gaming, twice is a rookie sum.
Fuck is this?
No, the next SimCity was going to be 2,000 times better,
Big!
featuring tons of exciting new features like subways, water management,
The love tap is gushing.
tax rates,
This government computer can process over 9 tax returns per day.
budget controls, and essays by renowned author Neil Gaiman.
Oh, I feel like I'm in
Civics.
class, but I'm getting dumber.
Look, it's a 29-year-old game. If you're really that curious, go pirate, buy it yourself. SimCity 2000 was also a success, selling 1.4 million copies in 6 years and spawning no less than 3 spin-offs. Streets of SimCity allowed you to piss off entire neighborhoods at 6 AM with your modded WRX.
Represent the nation, y'all.
Simcopter allowed you to, you guessed it, watch shirtless men pash with each other. Oh yeah, you could also fly helicopters if that's more your style.
Get some, baby!
Finally, Sim Health, the final game based off SimCity 2000, is perhaps the most exciting game ever made about the exhilarating topic of healthcare reform.
Oh my god!
By virtue of it being the only game ever made about healthcare reform. 5 years passed, and in 1997, Maxis are acquired by Electronic Arts. However, At this point in time, the company aren't actually that evil, so I reckon we'll eschew the devil horns for now. In fact, EA are so nice.
I'm such a nice guy and I've never heard of
City Simulator.
That they actually allow Maxis as much time as they needed to complete the next SimCity game. And boys, you'd better buckle up, cause it's a big one.
He's huge.
SimCity 3000, a game that, judging from the title, was 3,000 times better than the original.
Whoa, slow down, egghead.
And 1,000 times better than its predecessor. 1 million sold in the first 6 months, and 4.6 million in the first 3 years. Expanded editions would soon follow, that all aim to, well, expand on the base game. One arrived for the Germans. 1 for the Koreans.
When you come home from school, study for 5 hours, okay?
1 for the Poms.
Pip, pip, cheerio, chip, chip.
And 1 for the entire world. Surely this success would warrant another sequel, with an even bigger and better number than 3,000.
There's always a bigger fish.
All signs pointed to SimCity 4000 being the ideal option. Although there was a significant part of the Maxis office that wanted to skip the 4K and move straight on to 5000 to show people that they really meant business.
I came to play.
However, Maxis decided to go against the grain and came out with SimCity 4. Fans were in shock. Luckily, this numerical regression didn't impact the success of the game itself. Look, at this point, I think you get the idea.
I think she's got it. I think she's got it.
SimCity, huge franchise, extremely successful.
Just bought this new Lamborghini here.
Kinda hard to screw up at this point.
Oh Jesus, this is a layup right here.
Despite another home run by SimCity, Wrighty would eventually reveal that he considered the game, in its current format, a tad too complicated for casual scrubs.
You're elite, damn it. We don't date noobs, we pwn them.
Well, maybe I don't want to be elite.
According to Wrighty, the game had worked itself into a corner that was far too complex for casual fans to break into, and he planned to take the city builder in the opposite direction, where anybody, regardless of familiarity or skill level, could plug in and play. However, when it came to making another SimCity in 2007, a different company had to step up to bat. For Maxis were busy cranking out Spore, a game that ate $20 million.
There it is.
That was hyped up to absolute oblivion.
Spore to win Game of the Year for all eternity.
I don't know what that is, but it sure sounds impressive.
Yeah, and that's not all.
And hey, eyes back here, mate. We'll cover that game another day. Trust me. While twiddling their thumbs waiting for the greatest game since sliced bread.
So, how long is this gonna take?
You can't rush art.
EA pawned SimCity 4's sequel off to Tilted Mill Entertainment.
You're Don Quixote fighting windmills, man.
Whose previous games included Immortal Cities, Children of the Nile, which was alright, I guess, and Caesar 4, which was also alright.
Well, at least it didn't fail.
Having studied Wright's comments regarding SimCity, Tilted Mill decided to stay true to his vision and got to work on stripping off all the complicated aspects of the game.
Thanks awfully.
Gone were utilities.
Skadoosh.
Gone was zoning. Power grids? How would you get that nerd shit out of here? Don't you know the cool kids are into social engineering nowadays?
We've been trying to get them thrown off campus for years, but they're just too popular.
In a complete and utter departure from tradition, the game Tilted Mill Entertainment came up with had a complete and utter lack of numbers on the front cover.
We've made a few changes.
In another departure from tradition, the game wasn't received that well, with many reviewers criticizing the lack of difficulty and depth when compared to previous titles. Oh wow, who could have possibly seen that one coming?
Negative reviews.
Wait a minute, how did this happen? We're smarter than this.
Despite the more casual approach taken by the game, Wright was so apathetic about the series at this point,
What's the fucking point?
that he later admitted the only interaction he had with societies was reading the reviews. Unfortunately, this also happened to be his last interaction of the series at all, because in 2009, Will Wright, the amateur urban planner, the dollhouse enthusiast, the part-time god,
They were bigger than Jesus.
quite possibly the only man to make games beloved by civil engineers and teenage girls in equal measure,
Pretty good, sir.
left EA, and just like that, SimCity had died. But before he leaves us entirely, can I just point out that this guy drove a modded RX-7 from New York to California in 33 hours, collected junk from the Soviet space program in his spare time.
Wait, it's all a city?
Always has been.
builds battle robots with his daughter, and lists one of his hobbies as buying collections and dispersing them to the masses.
Free sample. Help yourself, okay? Free sample.
In order to prevent collectors from growing too powerful. All that, and he has time to read complicated sounding books with black and white diagrams.
Why you reading, bitch?
And then make hit games based on those books.
Damn, I'm good.
What an absolute Chad. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to kill the mood.
Ooh.
No, I didn't mean kill, I meant bury. Damn it. Guys, just dump the corpse in. And so SimCity died. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. The corpse of a once great series unceremoniously dumped into the ground. The game that made both Maxis and Wrighty was dead. Or was it? Because up next was SimCity Social, a free-to-play Facebook game that featured microtransactions,
Money talk,
and wait times. Oh god, just kill it now. Okay, so bit of a mixed history, but EA still had faith in SimCity's ability to make a comeback. Which is why, on March 6, 2012, the company announced SimCity. No new numbers.
Okay, yes, you are definitely not on the list.
No fancy sounding words after the colon.
Well, ooh la dee da, Mr. Frenchman.
This was gonna be the franchise reborn. At the forefront of this comeback was a brand new glass box simulation engine that promised a whole plethora of complicated sounding features that fans were eating up.
His finger looking good.
For one, unlike previous games, where abstracted numbers were used to represent stuff.
What the hell am I looking at?
According to lead developer Dan Moskowitz, the new SimCity was going to represent everything in the simulation as a visual object. Every single inhabitant of your city was going to be tracked.
Maxis are developing a new SimCity game.
Dude, this is literally 1994. And when Maxis said tracked, they meant tracked. Every car.
Target acquired. Enhance, then forward.
Every pedestrian.
Walking here! Walking here!
Target's acquired. Focus on the drop.
Every cyclist wearing some ridiculous outfit
I got him locked.
was effectively a real human being that went to a job during the day.
Got the Bob in the house.
And to a home every night.
Hey, I'm home.
And this level of detail didn't just apply to citizens. Fires, for example, would be spread naturally from building to building. Calls to the fire department were going to be simulated, and fire trucks sent to handle the blaze would have to contend with actually making their way through traffic. That by itself is a crazy level of detail.
Tell you what, that level of detail is really Moorish.
But when you think about it, that's just for fire. Imagine the simulation put in place for something way more complicated, such as traffic, crime,
Police do nothing around here.
or even the economy. In fact, Max has got to promising so much.
So Maxis, I have some questions.
Yes, 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 definitely. Yeah.
That they declare that individual pulses of water and electricity were going to be simulated.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, pack your dialogue with bullshit pseudoscience.
But we're not going to stop there, because SimCity wasn't just going to be a solitary experience. Maxis also took time to boast of multiplayer, where players could join forces to create massive regions of steel and concrete. In the proposed system, players would have all their own little plots of pristine nature to bulldoze and urbanize. But when the really big stuff needed to be built, mayors could join forces to really screw over the environment.
I am Captain Polition!
By trading resources and collaborating on some big buildings.
That must be Lord Farquaad's
SimCity, great work.
Oh, that's the place. Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
Just like real life, several cities might be responsible for housing all the industry, utilities buildings, and other boring stuff.
We are Walmart.
While one city would swoop in and steal the credit. Maxis were apparently so set in this concept that they declared that, unlike every other mainline SimCity game, multiplayer was planned since day one. The devs stated that all this fancy simulation and multiplayer business was only made possible by some very clever boffins coming up with an equally clever system.
I've got an idea!
Rather than relying on your puny PC to handle all these calculations, the game apparently offloaded computations onto the online cloud. However, this came with a bit of a caveat. If you couldn't connect to the internet, god damn it, you couldn't connect to the cloud. And if you couldn't connect to the cloud, then the only gaming experience you'd be getting would be staring at the box art.
10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, best king, best king.
Any lesser company might have reconsidered this over-reliance on the internet. Nope. Since all it took was one bad day at the servers for the whole city to fall apart. But this was EA, one of the largest gaming companies in the world. Surely their servers would crush SimCity out with ease. Or would they?
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
There was absolutely nothing to worry about, said Max's devs to a slightly concerned public. Well, actually, they didn't say anything at all.
I have nothing to say.
Cause when asked to explain themselves to the Reddit crowd in an AMA,
I want the truth!
The dev team kept silent on matters of Always Online.
Why won't you talk to me?
Bit suspect. But hey, maybe they were busy. A year passes and we find ourselves in February 2013, 1 month before the game releases.
Oh, it's crunch time, baby. Woo!
And boy is everyone excited. After all, who wouldn't be? Even if you ignore the fact that this was going to be the first SimCity game to be released on PC in over 5 years, or 10 if you don't count societies. With the combined weight of all the aforementioned features bearing down on consumers, the hype surrounding the game on its own was reaching critical mass. It seemed that every major video game media outlet was using the game as an excuse to crack open the old thesaurus and write fancy sounding nonsense.
The game will emphasize a dynamic struggle for limited resources.
Is this English?
And even the most trustworthy people in the world, YouTube commenters,
You can't lie.
were predicting a massive return.
SimCity.
And besides, this was a Maxis developed game. The company had made SimCity a hit 4 times in a row. It was practically a foregone conclusion they'd pull the reboot out of the bag as well.
Done it again. He's done it again.
And so gamers across the world went to sleep, safe in the knowledge that there was absolutely no way Maxis could screw this one up.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to
build.
Or at least we would. It seems all the servers are dead. Yep, that's right. Apparently nobody at EA thought it prudent to make sure the servers are up to scratch to support an always online game.
That was your job, you fucking moron!
It was a tragedy.
I don't know, I'm just upset.
All that hype, all those promises, all that tension, and you can't even play the game to check if it's good.
I guess we'll never know.
Some players reported waiting 45 minutes just for their activation code to be accepted.
What took you so long?
Others weren't even able to activate the game at all. Those who were lucky enough to get in would later find themselves beset by constant crashes and a host of bugs. In fact, things got so bad that Amazon were forced to temporarily pull the game from their store and put up a warning telling potential customers that the game was pretty much inaccessible.
It's locked. Let's do something else.
And it's not like you could just opt to play solo either. Since EA was so fixated on the idea of multiplayer and cloud computing, players were always required to be online.
What's a web page? Something ducks walk on?
That is hilarious, Grandpa. I'll read another one, Greg.
Even if you weren't planning on interacting with others during your session. So all those big promises of interconnected cities and huge regions inhabited by multiple players were true, but they came with the added caveat of not allowing SimCity to be played offline.
We don't do that here.
But let's say that you do roll a 20 and get in without any hassles.
Yeah, that fits.
Well, unfortunately for you, EA took your money and did a runner.
What's that?
Because, oh god, it's all gone to hell. Remember those intelligent Sims Maxis promised earlier? Well, turns out the AI for that lot was far more artificial than intelligent. Sims would wake up in one house, travel to the closest workplace they could find, and go home to an entirely different house.
Daddy's home!
Before waking up and going to a completely different job.
Why does everyone have such a hard time finding a job? I mean, just today I found 3 more jobs during my lunch hour.
Vehicles were programmed to take the shortest route to their destination, at all costs. And I mean all costs. Cars would randomly make turns to dead ends for no discernible reason. Think public transport would be better? Well, being from Melbourne, I can safely say, trams just don't work like that. And I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure intersection isn't a synonym for eternal purgatory.
It's just an allegory. It's just an allegory of our inevitable demise. I'm slowly dying.
And that was just the stuff that wasn't planned by Maxis. Even when you look at the stuff the devs actually intended to put in, the game is just way too empty compared to its predecessors. No farms, no subways, no terraforming. All things SimCity 4, a game released 10 years prior, had on day one.
We have them all.
And ironically, contrary to all the rubbish the devs spewed about cities being interconnected,
I would really prefer if you would be quiet.
Each city only had one link to the outside world that was fixed with every map. That meant that all traffic in and out of your city had to be routed through one road, which was a great idea to implement in a game that featured this brilliant traffic system.
This entrance into the city builds up a huge amount of traffic, as you can see, because there's 4 lanes on the highway and only 1 lane coming into the actual city. Emergency vehicles are also still stopping at red lights. The traffic lights aren't in sync at all. Cars can turn from any lane.
I've never driven before.
Great.
That population number at the bottom of your screen, yeah, well, if you go into the source code, you'll find out that it's just some made up rubbish, since the game only simulates 1/10 of that number. Maps are also far too tiny.
Why is it so small?
This is an approximation of the largest map size in this new SimCity versus the largest in SimCity 4.
LGR noted that some of the online features Maxis were going on about hadn't actually been implemented come launch day.
At least, you could if it worked, and at this point it doesn't whatsoever, so I really don't know anything about it.
YouTuber and savior of procrastinators everywhere, NerdCubed, apparently took a grand total of 2 hours to fill an entire map and effectively beat the game.
It's 2 hours in, so you may note that I've essentially finished. The city's making a profit, there's nothing really left to be done.
And to cap things off, due to the game always being online, it was technically always saving.
Gotcha!
Woo! Which meant that any mistake you made would be permanent. Shh.
Oh my god.
But let's assume you managed to run the gauntlet of brain-dead AI and equally brain-dead design decisions. Well, too bad, matey, because you might just get hit with a rollback error. A bug in the servers that would take your beloved save file.
Hey! Hey!
He's bagged.
Nick its lunch money, shut up its gal, and curb stomp it into oblivion.
Oh!
Okay, by now, you've probably got the idea.
Got it.
But just as a side note, in typical EA fashion, Day 1 DLC was the order of the day.
What in fuck's name is that?
DLC.
Sir?
Assuming you weren't satisfied with horrendous servers and terrible gameplay,
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
you could choose to screw yourself over even more with a grand total of 3 country-themed DLC that all gave you a couple of new features.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Literally 2. These are $10 each, by the way. Hello, police. I'd like to report a robbery. No, I don't have the $10 police station DLC. Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry for bothering you then. Okay, mate, did you take cash or card? So, as things stood, there were 2 issues that were tag-teaming SimCity into oblivion. The first one was the most pressing. Players just couldn't play the damn game.
I've said it before and I'll say it again.
SimCity
Simply doesn't work.
The second, while less immediate, was perhaps even more crippling. The game itself just wasn't a game worth playing.
The game is not fun.
Fans demanded fixes, and by Jove, EA delivered. Well, when I say delivered, I don't mean a solution, because that would be far too consumer friendly. Instead, EA offered those who purchased SimCity before March the 23rd a free game to make up for the disastrous launch. The titles on offer included Battlefield 3, Dead Space 3, Mass Effect 3, Need for Speed Most Wanted, and, get this, SimCity 4.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
But all in all, a pretty generous move on EA's part. Just ignore the no refund policy the company also instituted that month. The closest thing Maxis had to an excuse was a blog post published by Lucy Bradshaw, the studio's general manager. In the post, she claimed that more people logged on than expected, and that she hoped, I kid you not, that we'll be friends again when SimCity is running at 100%.
Best friends forever and ever.
Whether or not she actually expected people to take up her offer of friendship is unknown. It's not like such an offer mattered anyway, because by this point in time, people were just plain fed up, and it showed on the internet. The game's Metacritic was the equivalent of coding in the Soviet Union, a giant sea of red, and a whole bunch of zeros and ones. YouTubers declared open season on EA.
SimCity gets a 3 out of 10.
Perhaps EA now stands for expel all your money from your wallet so that we can have it and then be a dick about it.
Sorry, but as it is now, SimCity sucks.
Game critics were going to town with negative reviews.
I give
SimCity
the lowest rating I've ever given a city, a 6 out of 10.
And even the mainstream media was panning the game for its server issues.
Nah, you broke as fuck, no thanks.
In fact, consumers were so pissed off that 79,000 of them signed a petition
Go away
to remove always online DRM from the game. Things would then go a step further when fans launched a petition directed at the President of the United States.
I confess I'm very good at video games.
As expected, both went absolutely nowhere, but for a brief fleeting moment, it looked like gamers were actually going to rise up. Keyword brief. But regardless of if SimCity should have been offline, the big question was, could it have been offline?
I need the internet. I'm out of your stupid contest.
After all, throughout the game's development, EA had been touting how essential an internet connection was. According to them, entire systems were designed around cloud computing. All those fancy calculations that were being made to ensure that fires were the right amount of fiery, that water was consistently watery,
Water tribe.
that traffic was trafficking. Jeez, who wrote this rubbish? Oh yeah, would have to be moved onto your crappy little PC. The amount of engineering work needed to jerry-rig SimCity for offline play would be unimaginable.
I can't believe it! I can't believe it! I don't believe this!
Or at least, that's what EA said. And wow, what a surprise, EA were lying through their teeth.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
All that crap about cloud computing, a complete and utter lie. An anonymous Maxis employee told Rock Paper Shotgun that the servers did a grand total of 0 work when it came to running the game. As it turns out, they were really only tasked with doing regular server stuff, such as storing save games.
I'll save that for later.
And communicating with other players.
I've been looking for you. Got something I'm supposed to deliver.
Kotaku would later run a series of tests and discover that the game would chug along perfectly fine without a connection for 19 minutes straight, which further discredited EA's explanation. Look, cloud computing is essential for SimCity to work. Fact!
Likely story.
And then the company's honeyed words went from doubtful to just straight up untrue. Because it turned out that instead of requiring hours of programming, you could make the game indefinitely playable without a connection by just changing a single line of code. A mod would later appear on Reddit allowing players to do in a minute what EA claimed would take months.
You're not supposed to do that, Reddit. You know you're not supposed to do that.
In typical fashion, EA didn't respond to the mod and would take nearly a whole year to finally patch offline play into the vanilla game. But not before releasing more DLC for the game.
Well, busting some fresh heat.
Because in November 2013, fans were greeted with the launch of the Cities of Tomorrow expansion. We're not going to get into it because that's quite frankly a tangent not worth pursuing, but as you'd expect by now, the features were shit, the price tag was insulting, and the expansion itself was a buggy mess.
We saved
SimCity.
However, despite all this negativity surrounding the game, EA would actually end the year on a high and claim an award for their brilliant work on SimCity. That's right, as 2013 came to a close, the company was voted worst in America. Hooray! For the second year running. Hooray!
Let's go!
Now, was this deserved? No. Look, complain all you want about the stunts they've pulled in this video.
See, that's the push.
But they probably shouldn't have beaten out companies that literally use slave labor. So I'd chalk this up to a case of internet problems being far removed from real life problems.
I don't need that stuff. I play video games to escape my reality.
Now, it is worth mentioning that Maxis did try to patch the game back from the brink. However, it's also worth mentioning those patches were more useless than turn signals on a BMW. Once again, refer back to NerdCubed, whose video, released a full year after SimCity's launch, still features all the same crap we looked at before.
Something very familiar about all this.
Brain-dead drivers, an AI that failed recess.
You have to sort of design your city around the AI being too stupid to get where it needs to go.
And more pathfinding bugs than D&D Night and an ant farm.
So look, they're making it look they genuinely do just fling themselves.
It was clear to EA that SimCity was persona non grata to the gaming community.
Just stay the hell away from me, both of you.
And, naturally, support for the game ceased completely by late 2014.
Oh no!
As for the 2 million plus owners of the game, well, bugger them, I guess.
It's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
EA made their money.
I'll take that back!
Why on earth would they waste it on pointless fixes and improvements? And, soon after, the higher-ups at the company decided it was the perfect time to punish those responsible for SimCity's failure, and went off on a witch hunt. But who would be the sacrificial lamb? Hey, looks good to me!
Dominating!
And, just like that, Maxis, an institution since 1987, the company behind gaming classics such as Sim Earth, Sim Ant, and, I don't know, Spore, I guess, was kicked out of its HQ in Emeryville, gutted of talent. And, in a fate worse than death, sent to Helsinki to make mobile games.
So that's it after 20 years. So long, good luck?
I don't recall playing Good Luck.
Now, if you look at the box art for The Sims 4, the studio does exist, but out of the 3 Maxis offices that are still around, 2 of them were created post SimCity, and all of them are effectively life support systems for The Sims 4. So I think we'll mark this one down as yet another murder committed by EA.
Sir, we've got our man. Looks like it's Electronic Arts again.
Cheers, mate. Let's get him.
Okay, EA, the jig is up. You're under arrest for the murder of SimCity and Maxis. What do you have to say for yourself?
Careful, mate. They're a sneaky bugger, that company.
Don't worry, man. They've got nowhere to...
Joe, that shirt! Stay with me, man! Stay with me, damn it! It's not looking good, man. I forgot to buy the $5 first aid DLC. Did anybody make a colossal order? City Skylines! Don't worry, boys. I'll take care of this one.